today I'm going to be doing a quick video about sugar gliders. Just want to play in your pom-poms? So it's like 3 in the morning, so they're wide awake. They don't love the lights, but they've kind of gotten used to it. So I just wanted to do a quick video about a question that I get asked a lot of times. It's, are sugar gliders good pets? So I think this is a very hard question to answer for any pet. New setup. Because I thought they're going to be really into their little pom-pom pit. This room is glider proof, but this room has a door to another room that's like a bedroom and that's not glider proof. And I didn't think they were going to go in there, but give Mocha like 5 seconds. Thank you, Cow, though, for being with me during the course of this video. We really appreciate it. Can you show your face once? Mocha!
Why do you always find the one place I don't want you to go?
I guess I'm just gonna be sugar glider. I just have to do a video of them hopping around. They look so pathetic. They look like splats of like blah. So like I said, today I'm gonna make a video on a question that I'm asked a lot in real life.
Would you like to come back? Hi, say hi, Mocha. Say you don't hate me. He's like, no, I do hate you.
Here, do you wanna go in? You can go in the pocket.
And now Cow decides that he wants to play in the ball pit. They're so uncooperative. They're really bad pets if you want to try to make a YouTube video about them, because they don't listen to anything. Cow, Mocha. Okay, I have to actually get started on the video.
So like I said, this is a question that I get asked a lot, and is if sugar gliders are good pets. I think a lot of times when you see something really exotic or something that you've never really heard of, it's your default question to ask if they're good pets. But it's a really hard question to answer, because if they're good pets for a person depends on the person, not on the actual animal. So that being said, I don't think sugar gliders are good or bad pets. I think people are either the right people or the wrong people to have sugar gliders. A lot of us fall in the between area, and what I see happen in a lot of these videos is they're really negative, and they say if you kind of fall somewhere in that between, that you really shouldn't get a sugar glider, that it's so terrible that you're going to be abusing your pet. But that's really not the case, as long as you can provide for them all their needs. And even if you don't necessarily enjoy every single aspect of them, but you can tolerate it and the good outweighs the bad, I think they're a good pet for you. I personally don't understand why most of these videos are so negative, because there are so many sugar gliders in rescues needing homes. When there's good people like this who are watching this video and actually doing their research, I don't know why you discourage them from getting an animal that needs a home. So I just want to say that this video is going to be really positive. There are a lot of bad things. I don't necessarily think it's sugar gliders in general, but just to owning pets, there's a lot of negatives. But personally, I think sugar gliders are really good pets, and I think a lot of people would actually enjoy them. So for each one, I'm going to be giving a thing about them and a reason that could be a pro and a reason that could be a con. Like I said, it's really relative to the type of person that you are. So I'm going to be outlining how different types of people might view each one. So the first thing about sugar gliders is that they're really social. I really like this because it means that they bond really well to their owners. And they also bond really well to each other. Personally, I love having multiples. I think it's more fun for me, especially to see how they interact with each other. And especially with social animals as opposed to solitary animals, like hamsters or hedgehogs, they don't really need any human interaction. But sugar gliders, they tend to really crave it. So I really like that aspect of it. You can also keep them in really big groups. They're colony animals. So a lot of the times you'll see people that they'll have like 5 or 10, which just seems so fun in my opinion. So I really like that aspect of them. A reason that a lot of people see this as a negative is you do have to get at least 2 sugar gliders. Like I said, these guys are really social, and even if they are bonded to you, no matter how much time you spend with them, you're never going to be able to substitute another sugar glider. Your sugar gliders, if you have 2, you're going to notice they're always together. And the fact is, you can't be there with them 24 hours of the day. And even if you could, you're a really poor substitute for a sugar glider. You can't cuddle with them, you can't groom them, you can't wrestle with them, you can't communicate with them. So these guys really need to be in pairs. This is a little bit more expensive because usually the most expensive part of a sugar glider is the actual sugar glider itself. So it's going to cost you a little bit more money, but these guys are going to be living us such a long time. So I think it's well worth the investment. And like I said, there are so many in rescues, and whenever you see sugar gliders in rescues, they're like 99.99999% always in like a pair. So you can just adopt a pair. And a lot of the times, if you talk to breeders or anyone in your area who's selling sugar gliders, they'll give you a really big discount if you take pairs, because they know how important it is that you have 2 of them. I wish I could actually show you guys a sugar glider in the video.
Excuse me, will someone please? Would you like to come out? I think I got them both. Would you like to come out, Cow? He's like, no. Okay.
you should consider before you get them is traveling. The reason that I really like sugar gliders is because you can take them anywhere with you. Like during the day, they're like out cold. Not cold. I don't know. They're like really out, so they'll sleep through anything. So you can take them in bonding pouches or like even in your hoodie pocket. You can carry them around with you during the day, which is really fun. I personally wouldn't recommend taking them to something like school or work where you're gone for like a large portion of the day. Hello, would you like to come out? And then it's also really fun. You can take them with you to the store. You can take them with you on hikes. So all that's really fun. Another pro about travel is they actually travel really easy compared to a lot of animals. It's really easy if you want to travel with them just to take a travel cage in your car. Just take a bonding pouch with you instead of having to worry about taking a crate and then bringing water and all these things like you would for a dog or a cat or even a rabbit. Sugar gliders tend to travel really easily. The con with that is because they are exotic animals, finding someone to pet sit is always a little bit difficult. A lot of people know how to take care of your conventional dog or a cat, but not everyone knows how, and not everyone will be able to take care of your sugar gliders. Because they are such a unique pet, I think if you have them, it's easy for you to adapt your lifestyle to them. But to ask a pet sitter to do it, or even like a family friend, because these guys are kind of like on their own schedule and they're so weird, usually it's hard for other people to take care of them. So if you're someone who does like to travel a lot, I would say these could either be a really good pet for you or a really bad pet. The next thing about sugar gliders you should know is they're really small. Most sugar gliders will be able to fit in the palm of your hand. In addition to being small, they're also really light. This makes it really good, again, if you want to carry them around with you during the day. It also, like relative to their size, they need a huge cage, but their cage really isn't going to take up that much space in your house because it is mostly vertical, and because these guys are so small, even if you have something that's maybe like 3 people wide and like a person tall, which isn't like a ton of space, that's a lot of space for them. So I really like that aspect about their size. It's also really good because usually the amount of cage space that you need for 2 sugar gliders is like the exact same that you could like keep 5 sugar gliders or even 6 sugar gliders in. It's because they're so small, they don't need all that extra room because their cage size should be really relatively large. So you could keep a lot more rather than something like a rabbit. Every time you add another rabbit, you should be pretty much doubling their cage size because they're just so big and the rabbit cage size minimums are so small. So I really like that aspect about their size. A negative though is because they are so small, they aren't very good for small children or rough handling. Their bodies are really, really frail.
And I'm sure they have bones, but I literally feel like the only hard part of them is like their skull, and like every other part of their body is just like so soft and limp.
So because of that, I feel like they'd be a really bad pet for small kids who maybe don't have very good motor skills and they might squeeze. I just don't think they're ideal. It also means that if you do want to set up an area for them to play outside of their cage, because they're so small, you're going to have to supervise them really intensely. My rabbits, I can set up a playpen and be gone like for hours and then they're still there when I get back. But because sugar gliders, not only can they walk on the floor, they can also climb and they can also glide. When you are watching them, because they're so small, they can get into all your little nooks and crannies and they can pretty much get anywhere. So it's really important that when you supervise them really well. Another thing about sugar gliders is cleaning. I feel like for me personally, they're really easy to clean. So my cleaning routine for them is I wash their pouches about every 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how bad it smells. And it like also depends on if they end up like using the same pouch or they kind of rotate between all of them. Like this cage setup that I have, they're like kind of sleeping in a new pouch every single night. So for cleaning, I wash their pouches about every 2 weeks, and then I change their bottom tray about every 2 weeks as well. And then I alternate doing that so they don't lose all of their smell at once. So this is really good because I feel like they're a really easy pet to clean. About maybe every couple months, I would take their cage outside and hose it down really well so you really get all the gunk off of it. But yeah, cleaning I don't think is too bad for them. But the con with this is you really can't be cleaning that intensely every single time.
I'm comparing everything to rabbits because like that's the other pet that I have.
But when you have rabbits, every time you clean their cage, you kind of end up making it really spick and span, and then they end up like messing it throughout the week. But sugar gliders, you don't want to do that because if you're removing all their smell, they're going to end up scent marking, which is just a fancy way of saying urinating, like even more on their cage, and it's going to smell even worse. So you kind of just have to accept that it's never going to be 100% kind of like sterile, like a rabbit cage is. So I like that in one aspect because it makes cleaning a lot faster and I don't have to be as in depth. And I don't have to do it very often because like I said, they're really small and their cage size is massive relative to their size. So I like that aspect of it. But if you are someone who likes to have things be really clean and really neat, then I don't think you'd enjoy sugar gliders. The fifth thing is the noise. They aren't super noisy like some animals, but they do have a lot of different vocalizations that they can make. Barking is probably their cutest sound. It literally sounds like a dog barking. Every time I hear it, I think it's my chihuahua. And they're also really loud for their size. They also tend to make a lot of noise rubbing on their wheel. And they also like to glide back and forth between their cage, which tends to be really noisy because every time they land, you kind of hear the bars rattle. So they do make a lot of noise. And another noise that people often find very triggering.
I hate using that word.
They do this noise called crabbing. It's like a very annoying pitch and it's really loud, especially for their size. So when you hear that, it really intimidates you. Luckily, they don't really crab a lot. My sugar gliders don't crab at me at all.
They crab at my dog all the time. Whenever they see him, they literally go up to him and start crabbing.
So they do make a lot of noise. So if you are having them in your room, which I did for a while, it's really hard to sleep because they're just so noisy. The thing I want to talk about is a little bit of their smell, and along with smell goes their pee. So sugar gliders, the main way they tell each other apart is by smell. In colonies, there can be huge colonies, they don't really notice each other by sight, but each glider has a distinct smell. And then because of that, when gliders really like you or when they're bonded to you, they're going to want to pee on you all the time. This is kind of just something natural that they like to do. They when they pee on you, they're kind of claiming you for themselves. They also, obviously, they pee in their cage. They can't be litter box trained. It's just not a natural behavior for them. So they are going to be peeing and pooing everywhere, and they are going to be peeing on you. And especially if you have them in a bonding pouch, or if you have them on you during the day, if something wakes them up, or you try to give them a snack and they wake up enough, everything right when it wakes up in the morning, it's gonna pee. So then when they pee on you, that's really irritating, especially if you're dressed for the day and you weren't expecting it. That's kind of when it's the worst. But yeah, you can't train your sugar glider to not pee on you. You can kind of minimize it by not letting them on you when they first wake up, because then you're less likely. But like I said, it's something that they like to do, so you are going to have to get used to that feeling. And also their pee smells very pungent, I guess you'd say. Their pee smells really bad. And they also have a smell to themselves. A lot of people say it's not a bad smell, but I think it's a bad smell. Every time I walk into my room, I'm like, ooh, it smells like sugar gliders. I think you do eventually go a little bit nose blind to it, but there is definitely a smell, and in my opinion, it's a bad smell.
A lot of people just say it smells musky or a men's cologne. I don't think that at all. I think it really stinks.
And especially if they're unneutered. And they have a smell on them too. A lot of the times, if I'm petting them in their bonding bag and I take my hand out, I can smell it. So the seventh thing that I really like about sugar gliders is the community. Everyone who has sugar gliders, or most people who have sugar gliders, are very passionate about them. It's kind of hard not to be. They're such a unique animal.
Who's holding my hand? Is that you, Mocha? Are you holding my hand? Aw, baby.
Yeah, everyone in the glider community is just very passionate and very eager to help. There are a few very held beliefs in the glider community. You don't want to breed without lineage. You don't want to have unneutered males, especially if there's not lineage. You definitely don't want to have your gliders alone. You want to have a large cage. You want to be feeding a good diet, like TPG or BML or HPW. So there are a lot of opinions like that. And I find that if you don't necessarily follow them completely, or you have a little bit of a different opinion, a lot of people in the glider community can be very judgmental. And a lot of people, they haven't tried different things. Usually a lot of people, they have a diet and they end up sticking with it, throughout the course, whether they've owned sugar gliders 30 years or just a year, they end up being really true to their diet. So you don't find a lot of people who've tried different things and can actually give you an educated opinion. So I find that's another negative, but I think as long as you're listening to everyone, I find that it's a great community where everyone really cares about the animals. So another thing about sugar gliders is their diet. A lot of people, this is the biggest reason that they don't get sugar gliders. And I think their diet, it seems really overwhelming, but I promise it's not that bad. Their diet, it's mainly just researching everything and actually doing it is really easy. Like researching is like 95% of the work, and doing it is like 5. The main thing is you want to make sure the diet that you're choosing is something that you believe in and you agree on. There's a lot of controversy about different diets, and like I said, there's not a lot of people that have tried all the different diets, or even like some of them. A lot of people, if they find one and it works for them, they end up sticking with it.
Which isn't anything wrong with it.
So I think what the best thing you can do is just do a lot of different research, see which would be best for your lifestyle, or which you end up having the most ingredients for, or which you think is like the most budget friendly. Yeah, just whichever one that you feel works the best for you, and I would just end up following that. But after that, the diets are actually really easy to make. And I find that feeding my sugar gliders is a lot easier than even feeding like my dog or my rabbits. Everything you pretty much make and then you freeze it. And I even freeze like their salads. So most of the diets, I don't want this to be like a knowledge video, but most of the diets, there's usually a staple diet, which is what I was referring to when I said like the TPG or the BML. If you Google that, you'll find what the ingredients are. So there's a staple diet, which is kind of to mimic like the nectar, that type of stuff that they eat in the wild. You also make fresh salads, which is what imitates like the fruits and vegetables that they eat in the wild. So those are the 2 main parts to their diets. Some diets also require that you feed pellets in addition to that, and a lot of people choose to feed live, or yeah, you don't want to feed freeze-dried insects, but a lot of people do that as well. But a lot of people like to do insects in addition to that. So those are kind of the main parts of their diet. Once you actually do the research, it's really easy to carry out because most of the things are frozen. So just thawing it out during the day. And if you make their diet for gliders, if you do it like once a month, you literally have food for the entire month. And you could probably also end up doubling or even tripling the quantity depending on what's easiest for you. So I really like their diets, and if you're someone who don't think that you can do like fresh salads every day, you should look into the TPG or the pet glider diet. Then it's really easy because you just add everything in there and you just thaw out the ice cube and just add the vitamin powder. Another thing that I really love about sugar gliders is Allergies. For sugar gliders, I wouldn't say they're hypoallergenic, but they're about as close as you can get. Honestly, if you guys know kind of the scam about things that are hypoallergenic, pretty much nothing is hypoallergenic. Like hedgehogs aren't hypoallergenic. Like most of those Maltipoo, golden doodles aren't really hypoallergenic. So there's not really anything that's hypoallergenic, but it kind of depends on you personally. In my opinion, I don't find that anyone is allergic to sugar gliders. Their fur is so short and they don't have a lot of dander, so they usually don't irritate your allergies. And because they don't eat anything like hay, like rabbits or guinea pigs, those also won't irritate your allergies. So I find that they're really good with people who have allergies. And they also don't really shed.
I'm sure that they do because the hair like has to come off.
But even if you're like wearing all black, you're not going to see little bits of glider hair all over you. And then another thing about sugar gliders is that they are exotic. I find that this is actually either what lures people or scares people away. So I think the fact that they are exotic, personally, I think it's really fun. I love that when people come over, they're always like, oh my goodness, what is that? Tell me about where it's from. And they have all these questions because I love talking about animals. So I love the fact that they're a little bit different and they're not your common dog or cat. But the fact that they're exotic also tends to scare a lot of people away. And to that, I would tell you that they're not really that exotic anymore. A lot of people have had them. I think it's more that their unique look that makes them really exotic. More common than you think. So I think if you're worried that if you have them, that you're never going to be able to find any resource. There are a lot of people that have had sugar gliders since babies for their entire life, like the life of the sugar glider. The sugar gliders have passed away, and there's been tons of research done in the community. So it's not like there isn't information out there about them. So I wouldn't be worried about that. But because they are more exotic than even something like a ferret or a chinchilla, there's not going to be a lot of vets that know how to treat them. And if they do, they're going to charge you really high prices. And a lot of the times, even if you do find a vet that's willing to treat sugar gliders, it's almost like you have to do a lot of your own research and then go in and pretty much tell them what to do, and then they'll do it for you. There's not enough information that vets have about them. And then the last thing I want to talk about is research. Probably what's going to be the hardest thing for most people. Caring for them, I say this over and over again, caring for them is not difficult, but the amount of research you have to do to care for them properly is what makes it difficult. Sugar gliders, like I said, there is a lot of information out there, but there's not nearly as much as something like a rabbit or a guinea pig that have been kept in many different ways for many years. There's just not that much information, so you do have to be constantly researching. There's also, in my opinion, there's not any like super good sources that have all the information compiled. If you are researching, you are going to have to look on a lot of different sites, go through a lot of different forums, talk to a lot of different people, because it just seems like no one's really been able to compile all the information into one all-inclusive set yet. Even if you search like Sugar Glider Care Guide, I highly doubt you'll find one that includes every aspect of it. But because there is new information coming out like nearly every, I wouldn't say day, but at least like on a monthly basis about how to care for these guys or about things that people have learned, I think it's really important that you do stay updated in these forums. Like a lot of animals, you can kind of just research them once and then all the information pretty much stays the same. Though it's good to always be updating your knowledge, with sugar gliders, you really have to constantly be researching to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information and you aren't doing anything that's potentially harmful. So those are my reasons that sugar gliders.
I really want to show you guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so this is Mocha. He's
I guess you don't want to say standard gray. Everyone says classic gray.
but he's just like a standard gray sugar glider. And they have their most iconic look. I personally think they're really pretty. I love it kind of looks like,
Can you please show yourself?
he has like eyeliner around his eyes. He's gorgeous. I love his tail because there's a black tip on it. Okay, and then they have a white belly. And the other sugar glider,
Excuse me, Cal. Will you please come?
this is Cal. He's a white mosaic sugar glider. He's almost all white. He's not a leucistic, which is when they're all white with just black eyes. He has a little bit of gray on his back. And he had an accident with his tail when he was a joey, apparently. So that's why it's so short. But, yep, this is Cal. He's a white mosaic. He has, you call them cow ears, because there's bits of, like, white and black on them. So that's why I named him Cal.
So, yep, those are my babies.
I hope you guys really consider getting sugar gliders. There are, like I said, a lot in rescues, and we need people that are willing to do their research and willing to take the time to take care of these guys, to give them good homes, because if you are the right fit for them, they're really, really good pets. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you want to keep seeing more updates on sugar gliders.
And rabbits. Also do a lot of rabbit videos.
Thank you for watching. Excuse me, does my hand smell like food? What do I smell like?